See, we have been taught to disdain each other, but our fathers and mothers didn't. They had respect. They were, in truth, kings and queens. Reminds me of the story of the young eagle. Perhaps you've heard it. There was once a farmer who had a barnyard of leghorn chickens, white leghorn chickens. And one day a friend of his said, you know, you could make some extra money if you would capture an eagle and show him around and charge admission to see him. And so the farmer said, that's a good idea. And he went out and he captured an eagle. But the eagle was too used to freedom, and would not be tamed. And he would not hold still, and he fought back. And then his friend said, look, maybe we made a little mistake. Why not use the eggs, the 2 eggs that this female eagle has laid? And so the farmer said, that's good. And he put the 2 eggs under a setting hen, and in due time, one of the eggs hatched. And this young eagle came out. He didn't know who he was. So the farmer called him Tom. And he put Tom out with the chickens, and he ran around with the chickens, and he thought he was a chicken, never knowing that he was the king of the birds. And he ran around with the chicken. In due time, he became a little ashamed of his color. See, the other chickens were white, and his feathers were deep bronze. So he put some chicken Noel on his feathers, kind of lightened them up a bit. And then he noticed that the feathers on his head stood up while the chicken's feathers laid down, and he was a little ashamed of that, so he tied a silk rag around his head. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Well, in due time, the other egg hatched. Now, when this other egg hatched, he broke bad when he came on set. Farmer called him Turk. Now, somehow Turk felt that he didn't belong down there running away from the farm every time he stamped his foot. And one morning very early, he wandered over to the edge of the barnyard, young Turk did, and he looked up into the sky, and there he saw a speck appear. And the speck got closer and closer and closer, and it got to be the largest bird he had ever seen. Of course, you and I know that it was a full-grown eagle, and the eagle came to rest on a branch right above the barnyard and looked down at young Turk and said, what are you doing down there with those chickens? And young Turk said, why, I am a chicken. He said, no, you're not a chicken. You're an eagle. He said, an eagle? What's an eagle? He said, an eagle is the king of the skies. He said, I want you to spread your wings and flap them and come up here beside me, and I want to rap to you a while. So young Turk said, I can't fly that high. You know chickens can't fly that high. And he said, why, you can fly that high? There's nothing that you can do because it's in your blood and in your bones. Spread your wings. He spread his wings, I flapped them, and he flapped them, and he rose higher and higher, higher than he'd ever risen before, and he came in on the branch with the old eagle. The eagle says, now settle down here. He said, I want to tell you that your father was a king of the skies. No bird could fly higher nor farther than he could without rest. And your mother was a queen of the skies. She was looked up to and admired by all of the birds of the sky. That's who you are. He said, well, you know, I'm a little ashamed of the color of my feathers. He said, don't you know what that color represents? He said, well, that's royalty. Represents royalty. He said, oh, that makes me feel so good, Turk said. He said, but how about the way the feathers on my head stands up? It's different from the other birds down there, the other chicken. So he said, why, don't you know that's your crown? I said that you were a king. He said, this sounds so good. He said, let's tell Uncle Tom. So he said, Uncle Tom, he called him Uncle Tom in deference to his older years. You know, he was a little older. Uncle Tom, and Uncle Tom was busy running around there with his silk rag on his head and so on. And he said, Uncle Tom, this fellow's telling us who we are. He's giving us our history. So Uncle Tom said, I don't want to hear anything about our history. I'm too busy eating this good food down here. And besides, you better come down here, you'll get us all in trouble. Said, I don't want to hear any history. So the old eagle said, just forget him. He's too brainwashed. Let us fly away to our destiny. And they took off. And as they flew along, they came to a deep valley. And the old eagle said, this is the valley of oppression. And the young eagle said, we'll fall into the valley of oppression. And the old eagle said, you won't fall because you have the strength of kings in your wings. You will not fall. And they flew safely over the valley of oppression. And pretty soon they came to a desert. It was the desert of mediocrity, the desert of don't care, the desert of only a C average. The old eagle said, come on, let's fly. And the young eagle said, I don't see any trees in sight. We won't have any place on which to alight. We'll fall. Said, you won't fall. You'll fly over the desert of mediocrity because you have the strength of kings in your wings. And pretty soon they came to a high mountain. It was the mountain of injustice. Young eagle said, we'll crash into the mountain. He said, you won't crash. You will fly safely over this mountain of injustice because you have the strength of kings in your wings. And I say to you this morning, you have the strength of queens in your wings. There is no mountain over which you can't fly. There is no subject which you can conquer. There is no height to which you can climb because it has come down through the ages of who you are.